Has everyone made an account? Okay, so the next thing you're gonna do is go to API keys. So you can either click here or, yeah, no, wait, sorry. You're supposed to click here, API keys. So I already have one made, but I think it should have a default one already made for you, and make sure that it says active. You might have to click generate, actually. I'm not sure about that though. You can give it a name or not, it doesn't really matter. But this API is going to be, this API key is going to be more important when we get to the JavaScript portion. So I would just keep the tab open. Okay, if we're good to move on, let's get started with the code. So I have a blank, actually first, make a folder for this lab, call it anything. I called it Frontend Lab Starter. And in that folder, you need 3 files, index.html, style.css, and script.js. So go ahead and make those 3. And the first one we're going to work on is index.html. And then also, as always, you can like copy the path and paste it in your browser to see your changes. I already have that done. So. Am I good to move on? Just for the people walking in, so make sure to go to openweathermap.org and make an account and then make an API key. It takes a while to activate, so that's why we're doing this at the start. Okay, I'm going to get started with the HTML. So the first thing I'm going to do is just make the outer skeleton code using the shortcut HTML5 and then clicking tab. And this is way too zoomed in. Let me go back. That good? Can people in the back see? I'm just going to change this title to weather app demo, just so it's not just called document generically. Okay. Now, in the body, I'm going to have one outer class called card. And this is going to hold pretty much everything in this little view. So that's going to be a div, and there's a shortcut to make divs with a specific class name. So I can do .card, click tab, and then it automatically makes a div with the class name of card. This will work on VS Code, by the way. I'm not sure how it works on others. So inside that card class, I'm going to have an H1, and in that, it's just going to be, I'm just going to copy and paste it from here, but it's going to be how's the weather today? Then there's going to be another class, .search. This is going to hold basically these 2 elements here, the search and the button. So inside that, I'm going to have an input, and that's going to have class name search bar, I'm pretty sure. And Then I'm going to have a button. And that's going to have class search button. Here's what it's looking like so far. Oh, inside the button, let me put the words go, all caps. And this is what it looks like right now. No styling, so it's kind of ugly. That's all right. Okay. The next container class I want to have is basically for this information here. So the location, picture, type of weather, and like the temperature. So I'm just going to call that weather. And inside weather, I'm going to have another container class. Not location. And this location class is going to hold an icon essentially, as well as the city. So I'm going to make another div for that location icon. So this will be the outer div for this icon, and then one more header 2 for the city name. So as a filler, I'm just going to put US. And that's what it's looking like right now. Okay. So the final website has a icon here, and basically we used an icon pack to get it. VS Code has a nice React icons pack extension. So if you search up React icons, so click the 4 squares, I guess, that goes to the marketplace of VS Code. And then there's a React icons, I'm pretty sure. Here, this one. Make sure to install that. So again, go to the 4 boxes on the left, search React icons, and then install. Delete that for now. Okay, so in this, I'm in VS Code, I'm going to do Command-Shift-P. And then I already searched up React icons, but all you have to do is type in React icons, click on it, and then there's a whole bunch of icons you can get the SVGs for, which is what we use. So I'm going to search up location. I forgot which one I used. I think I used this one right here. High location marker. So then I copy the SVG just like that. And then in this div, I'm just going to paste in the entire SVG. And this is what it looks like so far. Yeah. Yeah. So do you have the pack already? So Command-Shift-P on VS Code. That'll open up this little window. And in that, you type in React icons. I already have it autofilled, so it should be at the top. Click on it. And it should open up the extension. And then you can search up. So I searched location. Are there any other questions?
The first part was Command-Shift.
P.
Okay.
I think we're good to go. I'm going to move on. So weather will also have another container class. So that will be the container for these 3 elements, the image, the text, and then the temperature. So yeah, location was the container for these 2 things, and weather description will be the container for this. So I'm just going to go ahead and make another div inside weather, outside location. Okay. Inside that, I'm going to have a dot description class. And that will have an image as well as like a contents for the weather. So I'm gonna have image. Yeah. For now, it's just gonna be blank. I think I'm gonna have a class equals icon for now. And then another div for the contents for this little text right here. And yeah, that I don't think we'll have anything for now. And then finally, inside this weather description, I'm going to have another container for the temp. And inside that, I'm just going to put a p tag. And what's the temperature outside? 53 degrees. So inside, I'm just going to put a 53. I don't know the degree symbol, option shift 8. Option shift 8 on Mac if you want to get the degree symbol. Otherwise, just look it up. I'm going to stop here, wait for everyone to catch up. Are there any questions?
In the location icon.
Yeah.
What SVG would you use?
Oh, I use the one called high location something. Just scroll down just a little bit. High location marker, this one. This one, this one right here. Any other questions? Okay. This is it for the HTML right now. Yeah, so it's looking kind of ugly. It needs some styling. So let's move on to the CSS. So before I do that, I'm gonna link it. So another shorthand for this is you can do link and then brackets rel equals in quotes style sheet, and then href equals dot slash style dot CSS, and then click tab. And that'll just create it like that. Otherwise, you can just do it the normal way, but in case you wanted a shorthand, here it is. Okay. That's linked. I'm going to move on to the CSS now. Is that door open? There was no other side. So the first thing I want to do is like align everything inside the card. So I'm going to make a card class, and I'm going to make everything display flex, and then flex direction column. I'll just kind of align things on, I guess, row wise. There. And then to center it, I'm going to do justify content center. That's right. And align item center. Yeah, so everything should be centered on the page. Finally, I want it to be like pushed down a little bit. And in order to do that, I'm going to set the height to be 100 view height. So that'll make sure that the entire card class is taking up the view height. And lastly, I'm going to do margin 0. And that's going to make sure that nothing overflows. But it shouldn't be an issue because there's not much on this page. Okay. That's it for the card. So the next thing is the search. I'm also going to make that a flex box. So display flex and justify content center. and also align item center. Honestly, that won't really change much for now. It's just to make sure that when we change things later, it'll be aligned. Are there any questions? Margin 0. So basically without a margin, and we're using the card class is using the entire view height. But if there's still a margin, then like things that are at the very bottom will suddenly like overflow past the page, past the view height of your computer. Does that make sense? So like you have your computer like this, and then your margin is like below your computer screen almost because the card is taking up the entire height, right? So if we set margin 0, then that'll ensure that nothing will overflow into that margin. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, now the fun stuff. We're gonna get started with styling the search input box and the search button. So let's start with the search button first. So I'm gonna make another one for that. So in this, I want height 2.5 EM with 2.5 EM and margin 0.5 EM. Yeah, so that's just making it a little bit bigger. So to make it rounded, you want to have a border radius. And I'm going to make that 30 pixels. So as you see now, the button is not rectangular, it's rounded now. And to get rid of this like default border, I'm just going to do border none. And that gets rid of the border like that. Okay, next I'm going to do a background color. To make it that red color in the example, the hex code is E36060. The hashtag. And that changes the button color like that. The other thing that this button has is a little shadow beneath. So to do that, I'm going to use the box shadow property. And the things inside are 0 space 5 pixels. And the color is D0, D0, D0. So that'll make the shadow kind of yellowy white. And it shows up like that. Okay, finally, the text is black, but it's not that easy to see. So I'm going to make the color white. That'll change the text color to white. Font size, I'm going to make 0.9 EM. So that'll make it expand a little bit to fit the button. Oh, extra something. And font weight 500. That'll make it bolder. Yeah. It's kind of through experience. So it's more like testing around a little bit and messing with it. I know that if you use Figma to create mockups, then they will actually give you like CSS to put in. So sometimes you can use that. But yeah, it's mainly just like messing around with it. Okay, so there are other things I want to change about the button that we have. So right now in the final version, when you hover over it, can you see that it gets a little bit darker? So in order to do that, I'm gonna add like a CSS pseudo class. That's what it's called. So you indicate that by using the colon, and the pseudo class that I'm using is hover. So that'll basically say that when my mouse hovers over the item, then I want to change the style of it slightly. So yeah, I just want to make it a darker red. So the color I'm going to do is DF A4. A4. No, wrong way. DF4A4A, like that. That's, I don't know if you can tell, but it is a slightly darker color. And then I'm also gonna make the box shadow a little bit smaller. So I'm just gonna copy this above. It's gonna have the same color. I'm just gonna change it from 5 to 2. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna do for hover. And then I'm gonna do another one. So another thing special about this button is that when you click on it, it'll move down a little bit. So I'm gonna add another pseudo class. This one's called active. So that basically means that when a mouse is clicking on it, it'll change the style. So again, I'm going to do the same 2 things to the colors and the box shadow. And then I'm going to use this property called transform. And what that's going to do is basically like transform the item based on one of these functions. The one I'm going to use is translate Y, so that'll move it down the Y axis, so down. And inside I'm going to put 2 pixels. So that's going to move the button down by 2 pixels when you click on it. And as you can see, it moves down. Actually, for hover, I don't really like making this smaller. I'm going to take that out. Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to define behavior once it's clicked on?
Yeah, pretty much. You're going to like change the styles based on. So like I could make this, like when I click on it, I can make the color green. No, not green. And when I click on it, it should technically change to green. Yeah, like that. But that only happens when I put my mouse down. Yeah. Yeah, they should still show up. I can show you that right here. So let me get this button. There should be a couple. They should show up in the inspect element. I'm not sure why it wouldn't show up. This? Ah, here. Those are just like, yeah, I can add them in the browser, if that makes sense, but the button already should have it. So I'm not sure why it's not showing up, but it theoretically should. But if you wanted to test it out before you put it in your file, you can use this like little testing thing, I think. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. Actually, there it is. But this would also help you test out before you put it in your CSS file. But like when you refresh, it disappears. Any other questions? Okay, so now I'm going to style this input box. So basically I want to remove the border, change the color, and make it rounded. So the class for it is .search bar. So I'm going to go ahead and make one. And to remove the border, I'm going to do border none. And I think inputs also have default outline, so I'm going to do outline none also. Something wrong. Here we go. Now the border and outline are gone. It's just a floating box. Okay, so now I'm going to change the background color. I don't want it to be a floating box. And the hex code I'm going to use is A4, A0, A0. And that's like a grayish, like a light gray color. And there it is, right there. And also to make it rounded, I'm going to do a border radius of 22 pixels. That should make it rounded. So I want to change the thickness of the input box to match the button. So to do that, I'm going to add both a margin and a padding. So for the margin, I'm going to do 0.5 EM. And for the padding, I'm going to do 0.8 EM. Also, I think I'm going to do 1.2 EM like this. That'll basically, so padding can take in two things. The first one will expand it top bottom, and the second one will expand it left right. Okay. So now that's done, when I type in, it's black, and I think I'd rather have the font color be white. So again, I'm going to do color white. That'll change the font color. I'm going to have the same font weight of 500 to make it bolder. Font size of 105%. That would, I think, actually expand the box a little bit, since the font is basically taking more than what space is offered. That's what the 105% is saying. And finally, I want the width of this search bar to be 30 VW. 30. Okay. Are there any other questions about the styling the search bar and the search button? Okay. Last thing I want to do really quickly is give this search bar a placeholder. So that's the placeholder thing, the placeholder attribute, and I'm going to put just the string search. Yeah, and it shows up right there. Okay. So for now, I think I'm going to skip the rest of the CSS. Yeah, do you have a question? Oh, so inputs have a attribute called placeholder. So I just put that in there and put the string in search in. Okay, so this weather container is going to be a little ugly for now. I'm going to add one more class in, and that's the icon class. And all I'm going to do is make the width 75 pixels and the height 75 pixels. That's just going to put a placeholder for when we eventually put an image in there from the API. So yeah, it just, nothing's there because the image has no source. But I'm going to move on to the JavaScript now, just because I want to get to that more. And if we have time at the end, maybe I'll go over this. So before we do that, let's again link it. So using the source tag. Oh, sorry, no, the script tag. Script has a source of /script.js, like that. So that'll just link it. Okay. So to get started, I'm going to make an object and I'm going to call that weather. So weather is going to have a couple different properties going on in there. The first one I want is our API key that we made earlier, and that's going to be a string. So go back to your openweathermap.org and go back to your API key and just copy and paste that in like that. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to have is a function called fetch weather. So that's going to be a function that is that how it works? I have to do it like never mind. Yeah, so it's going to be a function that will fetch the information from the API. So before we do that, let's go and look at the API docs first. So I'm just going to go to that URL. It's just /API if you can't find it. And under current weather data, I'm going to click API doc. And in this, I'm just going to click built-in API request by city name. So they already have like built-in requests you can make to this API. So the one we're going to use is just by city name, but they have city and state, which is only for US locations. And then they have city, state, and country also. But we're just going to use city because it's too complicated to do the rest. So I'm just going to copy and paste this into my browser. And for city name, I'm going to do Berkeley. And API key, I'm just going to copy and paste. And this is what the response is on the browser. So yeah. Which one? So underneath built-in API request by city name, you're going to copy in the first link. This is the request based on city. So you can basically see that this is just a really long JSON object. And it has a whole bunch of important properties that we could use, like the weather here, the temperature, the city name. Yeah, there's wind speed, I guess, if we really wanted that. Yeah, this API has a lot of information. We're just going to take whatever we need to make this app. This is here. Oops. Okay, are there any questions about this? So another thing I wanted to quickly go over is the fact that there are URL parameters. Where is it? Here it is. So the API also has some parameters. The one that's kind of important to us actually is units. So the way it works is in the URL, I'm going to have a, right here, I'm going to put an and symbol and then unit, and then I'm going to put equals imperial, and then refresh. Will that work? Imperial. Units, not unit. Yeah. So I think the original temperature was in like Kelvin or something. It's not really applicable to us. So let's just change it to imperial, which is what we use here in the US. Okay. So now that we have our URL made, let's go ahead and fetch it. And here's where I'm going to make you break out. So you have this fetch weather function here, and its job is to fetch from the API and print the data that you get to console. So I'm going to give like 5 minutes. You can work with people around you if you want, or work alone, doesn't matter, but basically fill this out so that when you inspect and go to the console, you'll see the data from the API. Also, are there any questions before you start on that? Yeah, the data is from the URL, the request. So you would use the fetch function to do that.
So wait, what we you just copied from the browser?
Yeah, you can copy it from the browser. Just display Berkeley's weather data in imperial units.
So we pretty much first
Yeah, essentially. Right now, all you want to do is print it out. We'll parse it later. Yeah, it's that one. You're supposed to put your API key in there. Yeah. Actually, it's just what's inside the string. It doesn't have to be the string. Not outside the brackets. Yeah, only the brackets. Okay. Did you just make your API key? It might take a little while to activate. If you want, you can just use the one that I have. I'm not sure how we're supposed to send this, but
Or should I use a default?
you can, yeah, you can try using the default. It might take a little bit, that's all.
Perfect.
Wait, hold on. Actually, hold on.
Oh,
There's not an issue, I realized. So you still want to query by the city, right? That's what the error message is saying, that city is not found because you haven't put a city in there. So we want to search for Berkeley. You want to put Berkeley in that. Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
that makes sense.
So what might be happening is that your API key, no, okay. So you want to take out your brackets. The brackets just signify that it's a variable that you're putting in place, but, and then same here for Berkeley. There we go. Thank you. Yeah, so that's- Okay, maybe like one more minute and then, yeah, question. Okay, so if that's the case, first of all, make sure there's no brackets around the API key or like string quotes. Just put the number in. And then the second thing is don't put brackets around the city name either. Okay. Okay. Is everyone good to go? Can I go over the solution? Okay. So I'm first going to start by using the fetch function. And in that, I'm going to just copy and paste this URL for now. Oh, I'm supposed to put that in strings. And then I'm going to do a dot then. That takes in a response. So then takes in a function. And so I'm making an arrow function that takes in response and returns response.json. And this is how you extract the JSON data from the API request. And then the last thing I'm going to do is another dot then. And in this one, I'm just going to do a console.log. That's going to take in data, excuse me, and just console.log the data. Just like that. This to another line, so it's yeah. So in the console, if I do weather dot fetch weather Berkeley, and click enter. Oh, weather is not defined. Weather is defined. Oh, oops, excuse me. There's nothing in this function. Weather dot fetch weather. What the heck is happening here? Here is not defined. Weather is defined. Let's try this one more time. In the console, that's how you test it, right? Okay. Oops. I did do it right. That's very odd. Did I spell it wrong? If you try it in your console, does it work? If you do weather dot fetch weather, it does work. I must have a typo. I'm not really sure what's happening here. But this is how you do it. I'm just going to move on for now because I know it's working in some area.
Also like bracket,
The brackets.
yeah, I guess, yeah, sorry.
Another curly braces
Inside the console log,
like this.
yeah, that's what I.
Because there's only one line, I don't actually think I need that, but I can try it. Let's try that. Ah, you were right about that. Thank you. Yeah, so weather.fetch weather. Here's the data. So now I want to fetch by city because our website actually searches by city name, right? So I can just break up this string, the URL, like this, add a city name. And in the function, I can pass in a parameter called city, like that. The other thing I can do is also break up this right here and just add the API key instead of typing it out like this. So this dot API key, just like that. I'm gonna put this one separate lines, like that. So our fetch weather function is now going to take in the city name and it's going to fetch the weather for that city name. So in the console, I can now do weather.fetchWeather Berkeley, and that should fetch the weather for Berkeley right here, like that. Are there any questions? Is it working for people? Okay. Okay, now I want to display the weather, right? Because nothing is showing up on this page. It's all just inputted in. So I'm going to create another function, display weather. That's not going to take anything in for now. So in this function, so instead of calling console.log here, I'm now going to call, actually, display weather is going to take in data, excuse me. And instead of console.log, I'm going to just call display weather, like that. I guess I could put 2 lines. We can still console it. So in this function, basically, I want to dereference whatever's in the data. So that means I want to extract the objects from the JSON object and put it into my own variables. So for example, name. So I'm going to get the city name. That equals data.weather. I'm going to console.log the name so we can see it. So let's see what happens if I call weather.fetch weather Berkeley. Okay, what's happening right there? Looks like it's undefined. I think, yeah, okay, weather is an array. So I have to index into it because this is the one item in the array. Let's see if that fixes things. Did that not fix things? See what it is. It's just data, excuse me. Yeah. Does it let me? It's so weird. Why is it not working? Refresh. Oops. There we go. Name showing up. Yeah, so basically dereferencing the pointers takes a lot of understanding the way the data is structured. So actually, I'm gonna do another, I guess, brief breakout. So in this, I want you to get the temperature and the type of weather. So like if it's cloudy or not, yeah, and get that and print it out. That's the next exercise. I'll give you, I don't know, like 5 minutes again.
How did you fix the weather is not defined?
The weather is not defined issue. Basically the name comes from data itself. So that's how I fixed it, if that makes sense. Maybe try saving and refreshing your page in case your changes didn't show up. Okay, let's go over that right now. So does anyone want to tell me how they got icon and description? Can like shout it out. Let's comment this out for now so I can test that. Data.weather. Oh, semicolon. Yeah. There you can see the city name. The icon is this number, which will eventually be in the source URL for the image. And then there's a description, overcast clouds. How about temperature? Okay, that's fine. I'll just go through it. So as you can see here, temperature is in the property called name. So the way you get into that is by doing data.name like that. Yeah, and that should get the temperature right here. Very exact. Is this working for people so far? Are you seeing it in the console? You're not? What are you seeing? So you have to make sure to call the weather.fetchWeather function in order to call the display weather function.
JS? Is it JS or?
In the console, you can. That's how I'm doing it. Yeah, okay. So the next part is actually displaying it, right? So to do that, we're going to use something called document.queryselector. And that's going to basically get the item by class name. So I'm going to, as an example, do image. So I think I call it .icon. And there I can set the source like this. So I already have it in a string. But each of their images have like a string. This URL right here, openweathermap.org/image/WN. And then plus icon and then this. This will basically make it 2 times the size. Where did this URL come from? So the images on their website have this URL. I'm not exactly sure how to get it, but I know that if you can copy the source link of that image image on their website, the icons, then it would have this exact source. Let me see if I can try and show you what I mean. So what is it called? 04N, something like that. That should be the URL. HTTP or HTTPS. Maybe their API is protected, so we can't see, but that's definitely the URL. Yeah, as you can see, if I call the function, let me refresh so you can see it disappears. If I call the function in the console, then the icon will appear like that. Okay. Yeah. And let me go ahead and quickly do the rest. So I call that location, just call it location. City. So So you want your H2 and your HTML to have a class called city, so that in the JavaScript, you can do the same thing. Document.querySelector. This time select on the class city. And here I'm going to change the inner text to be name. Yeah, just like that. Okay, looks like I also need to get the country. I'm going to quickly do that. Yes, comma. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Basically, I just extracted the country and added it to the text, just like that. Same way we do other things. Okay, now for the temperature, let me just copy and paste this. So the temperature, I'm pretty sure has a class .temp, and I'm just going to set it to temp. Yeah, and it changes, more exact. And I'm also going to add a degree Fahrenheit really quickly. Yeah, there it is. It shows up just like that. Okay, are there any questions about how to display this data? Am I good to move on, or should I wait? Okay, I'm gonna take that as I can move on. Yeah, so this is kind of annoying that I have to keep doing it in the console. So outside of this object weather, I'm just gonna call weather.fetchWeather. So now I don't need the console open. It should basically just automatically show up like this. Okay, I'm gonna close the console for now. Okay, last thing I want to go over is actually searching by city. So right now we're just hard coding in Berkeley from here. So I'm going to create another function, search. And in this, I'm going to call fetch weather. So actually first, let me go back. So I'm trying to get the text from the input, right? And the input has class search bar. So I want to do another document.querySelector, this time on the search bar. Sure, I'm going to also do inner text. And there I'm going to call fetch weather on this. So, sorry, that should be in strings. Yeah. So I'm basically getting the text from the search bar. And then that should be a string, which I'm going to be passing into fetch weather, which will eventually be passed through the API call. Does that make sense? Okay. So search is not going to work unless something calls it. So I have to add some event listeners to these buttons. So to do that, I'm gonna first do document.queryselector again. This time I'm gonna grab the search button. And then now I'm gonna call add event listener. And the event listener I'm gonna add, okay, I'm gonna put this in space so it's easier to see. It's going to be called click. And the second parameter is going to be a function. So in this function, I'm going to call this dot weather dot search. Okay. Now let's test if this works. Let me do the city Denver. Should work whether it's lowercase or not. Doesn't work. Is this right? Oh, instead of inner text, it's supposed to be value. Oops. Just added this dot fetch weather for safe measure. What happens if I search Denver now? Working? No, it's not. Missing brackets. Oh, missing a semicolon. It should be right, right? Okay, try pasting this in, whatever is up on the screen right now, and seeing if it works for you. Looks like it's actually not fetching properly anymore. What happened there? Oh, I see. Right. Okay, so I know why it's causing this error right now. So I'm trying to add an event listener on this button with the class search button, right? But this script tag is in the head. So I have to add the attribute defer. Basically, that means finish parsing the HTML before doing any JavaScript. That's what the issue is. Yeah. Is that working for people? Make sure you add the defer to your script. Yeah. So your search is going to call this dot fetch weather on this. There we go. Okay. Is this working for people? Make sure to remove the this from weather. It's just weather.search, not this.weather.search. Okay. The last thing I want to go over is just adding one more event listener. So right now I have to click the button. So instead I want to search when I click the enter key. So this event listener, I'm pretty sure it's called mouse up. Let me check if I'm right. Key up, not mouse up. Like that. And in this function, I'm going to check if, is that taken? This function is going to take in an event. I'm going to check if the event is enter. And then if it is, I'm going to call weather.search. Event.key, excuse me. Is that working for people? No? I see. Let me quickly add that. Excuse me. Oh my God. Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm kind of feeling really sick right now. I don't know what exactly happened. This is not an error function. That's all. That's the error. Anyway, that's basically it for this lab. I'm really sorry. I have to cut it short here. But the solutions are actually public. So if you go to github.com/fullstack ecal/frontend lab, frontend-lab-solutions, you should see the starter code, the solution code. So feel free to check that out. It has the remaining styling. Plus we do a toggle for dark and light mode if you want.